cannot describe to you enough the freedom that comes from recovery from addiction.
Everyone has a story. Real voices, real perspectives, real understanding. Let's see the world through their eyes. A podcast from Family and Children's Association. Okay, welcome to Through Their Eyes, a podcast from Family and Children's Association and Thrive. This is episode 1, and I'm very excited. Today, our guest is Ryan Kiser, the Senior Director of Recovery Services at Family and Children's Association. I can't wait to have this conversation. I've spoken to Ryan before. He's probably one of the reasons why I'm even working at Family and Children's Association. I'm also a person in long-term recovery, so the work in these conversations might get personal, and that's what we hope. Ryan, how are you, buddy?
I'm beautiful today.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be in recovery today. I'm grateful to have another opportunity to embrace whatever life throws at me. And boy, can it throw all kinds of stuff. But today in this moment, I'm feeling really just rejuvenated and looking forward to just having a conversation with you here.
Let me tell you something. I feel a little off today, a little tired, and just having your voice is like making me feel centered and whole. I just have to say that. And it always does that. So this is therapy.
That's encouraging. That is encouraging to me as well.
All right, so let's get started. I know you're busy and we don't want to take up too much time, but I really have some stuff I want to talk to you about. So I want to hear about your journey, okay? And I heard something the other day that reminded me of, I think, why we're trying to do this podcast. And the person said to me, the more we learn about others, the more we learn about ourselves. All right? I mean, what do you think about that? What's your reaction to that?
Oh man, for many years of my life, all I would do would learn about others in an attempt to not learn about myself. That mirror reflecting back at the person talking to me rather than looking inward. And it wasn't until a full deep dive in 2016 that any kind of self-reflection took place. But most of my teen years and into my early 20s were thinking I was doing some kind of self-discovery, experimenting, or at least what I like to use the terminology at the time, experimenting. I'm trying new substances. I'm going to open my mind to new concepts. And that could be philosophical. It could be aided using a substance. I was very much an angry teen, an angry Ryan throughout my adolescence and into my teen years. And as soon as opportunity came around for this new experience with life through substances, and first it was really what was available, which was alcohol, marijuana, and pills. And those were really tangible within my friends group, within my community where I lived here on Long Island, that I didn't have to ask much to receive any of them, whether it be stealing from a parent's bar, a friend's parent's bar, in the medicine cabinet, or down on the street corner in Wheatley Heights or Wyandanch where I lived. Being able to find anything that I sought to escape myself. And that's really the theme I'm talking about right now, is that avoidance of self and seeking outside of oneself. And that was my journey. And it just kind of led to new people, getting to meet what I thought were very interesting people throughout my early 20s. I moved geographically from Long Island to upstate New York, but the behaviors that I had started in high school really followed me. So I was starting to drink every day after school. I was starting to just find people and surround myself with people who use substances like me. My passions around music, my passions around media became completely entwined with substance. It didn't matter if it was an opiate, if it was a stimulant, if it was a depressant. I was infusing any with whatever life experience that I was enjoying, whether it was live music or creating music. Everything became wrapped up into one. So the people that I surrounded myself with had to have the similar kind of mindset as well.
Right.
So throughout my early 20s, that was kind of my journey. It was thinking I was finding myself, but really I was doing anything but. I was looking externally for validation, for acceptance, but also to lose the feelings that I was having internally that I didn't want to face. Yep.
Yeah, I always say my mental health has a drinking problem because the drinking is a symptom, but we all start for some reason or another. It sounds like to me you were trying to lose yourself in drugs and alcohol a little bit. Being in recovery now, is that something that you found yourself working on after you stopped drinking? Because when we stop drinking or doing drugs, we're kind of left with us still, right?
This is a lifelong journey. And when they share, and so oftentimes we get to be afforded these really awesome and powerful quips where they'll say, recovery is a lifelong journey. And it truly is. It's this opportunity. And when I kind of opened up today, I said the word opportunity purposefully, because it's really a mindset to allow ourselves to embrace whatever might get thrown our way, including getting to learn about ourselves and getting to accept ourselves for the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Some of that started while I was still using. My journey came through a path of harm reduction, and I was in and out of treatment centers throughout my late 20s. I went to 5 different inpatient rehabilitation centers on Long Island and combined that with outpatient treatment afterwards, post care. In my late, I think I was 28 or 29 years of age, and I found the rooms of AA. And I had experience there where I started to connect with another man, and that was so fearful.
Mm-hmm.
That was incredibly painful to kind of be vulnerable in that way.
Yeah.
And that man is still my sponsor to this day. And we're talking 13, 14 years removed from that time, right? That first introduction. And, but what a powerful, powerful connection that it lasted through me not really being able to abstain from a drink or a drug. And during that time frame, through the ages of 29 through 32, it was really trying to find my path in recovery. And I used medication. I used forms of harm reduction where I would put down one substance for another, find that oftentimes that didn't work for me. But sometimes it took a couple of years to learn that, and I did with marijuana. So I put down drinking and replaced it.
Right.
And I thought I was looking at myself. I was doing a lot of like self-help reading.
Mm.
I was working with a therapist. These are the things I'm supposed to be doing
Right.
to be a better version of Ryan. But I still didn't accept and love myself. And there was a big part of me that was still hidden behind a mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took being at my mental low, maybe not my lowest form of substance use, because
Mm-hmm.
there were many examples prior that you'd think, oh, that should have been his moment of clarity. Okay. But that's not how the disease of addiction works. And yeah, 32 years of age, ready to embrace who Ryan is for the better and the worst at that time. Yep.
Let me ask you though, because that's actually important to me, is that moment, that perspective shift, right? Because I truly believe that all the years that I was drinking and drugging, all the bottoms that I have, there were so many times that I had the opportunity to slip through that little crack in the door to find recovery, open my mind and be open to new things. But my perspective, it just wasn't there. And there's always, to me, this one moment where the perspective shifts, even if it's a tiny bit, to let somebody else in and things just change. What was your, I like to call it like the caterpillar to butterfly moment. What was your metamorphosis, that moment where you were like, oh my God, it doesn't have to be a bottom in the street, just mentally like, oh my God, I think I can do this. I think I might do this. Did you have a moment?
It was an actual moment, but it only was possible by the buildup of a series of events that happened over the course of I'd say 10 to 15 years. These little kind of white light moments where maybe a nurse in a psychiatric wing was extra kind to me and treated me person-centered and with like loving kindness that I didn't believe that I deserved. Or my mom coming back from an Al-Anon meeting and just laying pamphlets on the kitchen table. Or being in the ER again due to my drinking, and having the doctor say, you have another opportunity at life here. We didn't think you were going to make it.
Mhm.
All of those added up to this moment in July of 2016 where I felt just empty, hollow. I was on a family vacation in Maine, and I remember being at Acadia National Park with my sister, my brother-in-law, and their dog. And I felt so distant from them. I
Wow.
was standing right there looking over at the Atlantic Ocean, and I felt like I was standing on the other end of that ocean, that I judged myself so much from my past actions, from my behaviors. I couldn't separate myself from my thoughts at all. It was crippling. And I had made, and they knew my truth, that I was an alcoholic and I was an addict, and that I had at that time tried many times to seek help, but I hadn't had sustained where I was seeking on a sustained basis. And it was at the end of that family vacation, and I was driving home, and once again, I couldn't, as much as I wanted to, not drive directly to the liquor store.
Yeah.
I couldn't. It was like a GPS was programmed in my brain, and that's where I ended up. And I remember just sitting in my car, and it was that moment. I am totally powerless. And I had that moment before, Jason.
Yeah.
It had been there. I'd just waiting outside the liquor store for it to open, calling my drug dealer, waiting like to have enough cans to return at the bottle dispensary to have money. Those moments were there, but this one hit in a way that I can't even describe. And I just broke down in tears. Once again, breaking down in tears, but I drove the whole way back up to Maine. That moment was that powerful. I drove the whole way back up to be with them. And I said, guys, I need help. It wasn't
Wow.
even a phone call. I needed to say it to them in person. And that's where I started my journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was my moment of turning over my will on day one, and then day two, doing it again, and day
Yeah.
three, doing it again. And here we are. My higher power has been guiding me along the way, but we're nearing 10 years, right? Of that every single day process.
Yeah.
And yeah, but that was it. There wasn't anything like foreboding that was leading up to. It was on just another moment where I felt so empty inside, and I couldn't look at them as an equal because I didn't feel worthy.
Yeah.
I had been giving so much of myself in so many areas. I was still a good person. I just didn't feel like a good person.
Right.
I was
There's
doing all these esteemable acts, but
yeah.
I had no connection to them.
Well, there's a line in literature, and it says, and I think it describes so perfectly how I was living my life before I found recovery. It's the person that you are and the person that you want people to think that you are. So you feel one way inside. It's so hard to be vulnerable and communicate that and ask for help. So you wind up just living this life thinking that people think you're okay. People think you're okay. And I don't know why it's so hard to ask for help, because now for me, I'm able to ask for help, but how hard is it to ask for help? And especially for guys, right? There's so much stigma out there, and there's so much pressure on people in general, but I think especially men, to stay strong and look strong and be that example and, not give up. I mean, I'm a Gen X kid, so it was like, pull your pants up and get at it. It's like, why is it so hard to ask for help? And why do you think it's so hard for guys to ask for help? Like, what would you tell a guy out there right now who's just struggling and struggling and struggling?
The strongest, bravest, most courageous act that I have done in my life was asking for help. And while my mind wanted me to believe that that was not true, that I was weak, that I was broken, that I wasn't what a man should be. I wasn't what a son, a brother, a loving grandson should be, a good employee. I wasn't a contributor to society by asking for help. All of that is just the disease of addiction,
Right.
lying. And it is so powerful. Those thoughts, those intrusive thoughts that just will dictate, and a lot of there's a lot of societal pressures, and you're not wrong. There's a lot of things built into my ethnicity to the environment that I grew up in, where a lot of this was socially acceptable, to the society that where we place a lot of prevalence on these connections through substance.
Yeah.
And so typically now it's alcohol, but it delves deeper.
Yeah.
So the most it's hard to put into words just how important it is to share and to convey that where I define myself today as a human being, as a what I like to believe is a good person, is based upon vulnerability. And it sounds so contrary to everything that I learned growing up, or at least that I absorbed and I thought I was learning. But a lot of that is just masking as well, I've learned.
Yeah.
And it's just hiding behind a lot of things. And that's what I was doing because in part I learned that. So
Yeah.
I look back and I say I'm very kind to active addiction, Ryan. First off, I was in the midst of a very gripping disease that shaped my thoughts. It really wanted me to pull away from seeking that help. And even in the moments where I did, having the sustained ability to say I need it again the next day might not have always been there. So I know it's a different time and a different experience for everyone. But I would just love to encourage anyone listening in this moment to know that your time could be right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be when any set thing is occurring in your life. You don't have to have the apartment, the penthouse, the car, the job. You can be at your lowest of lows of what you believe, and that might be tangible objects. It could be relationships. Truly, it's your connection to yourself. And that's what I've come to learn. And I've also learned is one of my biggest acts of courage is to say, I need help. Can you
Yeah.
help me? Here's me, and this is what's going on.
Yeah. I think that the fear that people have and that I know that I had was asking for help. I didn't realize that other people felt that way, right? You've heard that expression. I felt terminally unique, right? So my fear was that if I tell people I need help, I'm going to seem weak. And that's why, for me, recovery, the most important thing in recovery that allowed me to sort of like take that first step, and still the most important thing now, and it comes through work, it comes through my 12-step program, it comes through everything, is identifying with other people that I know have gone through similar situations and have similar emotions and similar feelings. There's something so comfortable about knowing that you're not the only one.
Mm.
So it's like it's really hard to ask for help, but what I'd say is what's on the other side is realizing that other people feel the same way. And that to me is what really opened the floodgates. And talking about community, this is a good transition point, right? Because so you're in recovery and you're changing your life. How the heck do you wind up doing what you're doing today? Because I know this wasn't your first career, right? So, like myself, there was something else before. You weren't always in behavioral health. How do you wind up at Thrive? Tell me a little bit about that journey and how that relates to your recovery and why you decided to be doing this stuff.
Yeah, I love that jumping off point there, Jason. It's you kind of made the initial point, like I find this through connection. The worthwhile moments in my experience today, and as a person in recovery, is through connection, and that's where on the backside of asking for help, being surrounded by people that are also seekers, that are also looking to grow and to heal, has been so life changing. Getting to find that through church basements and through the rooms of 12-step fellowships was so transformational in my own journey, that there were other people, there were also other young people that were doing this. And that in itself was huge for me to learn that there were people in their 20s and their 30s that my life wasn't going to be over, fun wasn't going to be over, that I was surrounded by people that wanted to go whitewater rafting. They wanted to go to the Poconos and camp. They wanted to surround themselves with like-minded people that enjoyed life and
Right.
like to do the activities and hobbies that I like to do, but do it without a substance involved, and to do it while like seeking to be their true and best versions of themselves. Like how incredible is that to be surrounded by that? And I just wanted to soak it up almost like a replacement. Like I'm putting down this old version of Ryan and I am just going to run with this new, much more content version surrounded by people. And it's so against who I was. I was the loner, living alone, walking to and from the train every day alone, trying not to make eye contact, trying not to engage in conversation. Same at work. As I do my work, I do my job, I do it effectively, trying not to stand out, not wanting to draw attention, just to exist, not
Hmm.
to live, just to exist. So on the flip side, my journey's become much fuller, much larger. And some of that's by design, just knowing I'm better off today surrounded by people. Some of it's just by the nature of recovery. And there's this huge world that I was not aware of. And I don't think you were either, Jason, prior. It's just so expansive. And there are people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all life experiences, all seeking, all seeking. And I was working in a whole other profession, and I was doing city planning within the city and then out on Long Island. And I was good at what I did, but I didn't have that fulfillment.
Right.
Like I was experiencing a lot of the freedoms and the joys that come with recovery after work. And I do a lot of service, a lot within young people's recovery as well, and a lot of service. And it was so fulfilling. And it gave me such a sense of self that I knew I have a journey here that is way beyond what I'm doing now. And maybe I've been given some gifts through my life experiences that shouldn't be kept in a box and opened up at 5 o'clock after I get off my shift. Maybe this needs to be a part of who I am. And it was almost coming out of my pores. But after about 4 or 5 months of kind of working through that fear of what is that going to look like, it kind of came to me. And I was approached about attending Recovery Coach Academy. And the more I learned about this world of recovery that extended beyond a church basement, beyond what I was introduced to, which saved my life and continues to be a guiding light in my life. I wanted more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to meet more people. I started to volunteer at Thrive Recovery Center and I learned about Family and Children's Association and all the service that were offered. I learned about all the community partners that are doing work on a local level, and I wanted to get involved with them. I wanted all this time that I had been using for, in many ways, selfish things to be in the pursuit of, in this way, selfishly wanting to be involved in all the work that was going on all around me this entire time. I just had no idea it was happening.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an overnight journey to kind of change careers, but it was honestly, it was almost like a guiding light that I just had to follow and continuing to ask for help, right? Like this was a big leap, a lot of fear, running it through people. I had a peer support network that I could talk to. I had a sponsor who I could talk to. I had strong relations with my mom and my sister now that I could really rely on, say, hey, this is what I think I'd like to do. And just encouragement. Follow your heart, follow the guidance and wisdom that you're finding from within and that you're learning about yourself now in recovery. And yeah, it started as a volunteer at Thrive Recovery Center in 2019 or 20, oh my gosh, 2017.
Which is pretty much almost the beginning of the peer movement in New York State. I mean, it's still fairly young. And just for context, because I hope the podcast is able to reach people all over the place, but we are in Long Island, which is in New York, for anybody that doesn't know. And we'll probably be drawing a lot on the community from Long Island to be on this podcast. And for anybody that doesn't know what the peer movement is, can you just give like a brief summary of what the peer movement is and what Thrive does and what you're kind of doing now at Thrive and FCA? Because since I've known you, you've had like 15 different positions and it's all going like this. You keep moving up and up and up and doing bigger and better things, but it's all rooted still. And I see it when I talk to you, when you talk to people, in that peer philosophy, that peer movement. So talk to us about the peer movement and what you're doing over there now.
Absolutely. So the peer movement kind of originated from this idea that one individual connecting with another on an equal plane is really going to be fruitful. It's going to lead to deep connection. It's going to lead to trust to allow for vulnerability to take place, to allow for healing to take place. And the peer movement is all through, in New York State, certified recovery peer advocates, individuals with lived experience, whether they be in active addiction, whether they be a family member of. You can be a youth, you could be a veteran, you could be recovering from gambling. All of those things have a place and at the table. You have that as your superpower, so to speak. It is your greatest asset, your lived experience. Combining that with some cultural appropriate messaging, some trauma informed tone and training to help guide that messaging, and use a lot of active listening and motivational interviewing to build those pathways for other individuals, to connect them to whatever goals in their life they have, to find that what we like to call path of recovery. And it might look totally different from mine, but it's meant for them, whether it be someone still actively using and feeling additional support that they can find their journey, or someone using some kind of medication that no longer is using the same substances of no choice, or they're abstaining. No matter what that path looks like, there is someone on the other side to help be there with them, to figuratively hold their hand and just encourage them that what you're experiencing is valid. It's real. I felt that myself, and you can experience just what I've experienced on the flip side of that in recovery. So you want to go back to school and start up a new vocation, we're going to connect you to that pathway.
Yep.
You want to have stronger relationships and communication skills with your family, with your spouse, with your mom. Okay, we're absolutely going to make those connections and bridge those gaps for you. You're looking to have deeper connections therapeutically or clinically, we can make those connections for you. What we do is completely non-clinical, and it is in many ways the building blocks to bridging those connections for individuals. And it's all about building recovery capital. And that could take so many different forms, right? So it could be that one-to-one relationship through coaching. It could look like learning about all the different and multiple pathways that are available in recovery, whether they're faith-based, whether they're based in some form of meditative practice, whether there's some form of physical activity or yoga-based. They might be based in a 12-step fellowship or non-theistic fellowship. The gamut is endless.
Yeah.
If you have a passion in your life, running, okay, there's a recovery group for that. Say you like to do arts and crafts, there is a recovery group for that. So the recovery movement in New York really just draws upon that, and it builds it through these places called recovery centers, or what we call recovery community and outreach centers, or RCOCs. And Family and Children's Association, FCA, was one of the first partners in bringing a recovery center to Long Island, and what we call Thrive Recovery Centers. And in 2017, we opened our first in Hauppauge, New York, which is, for those that might be outside of the region, it's about an hour to an hour and a half outside of New York City, in what you consider like a suburban community. Nothing about Long Island is typical suburban. There are a lot of people that live here, and there are many pocket communities of different ethnicities or backgrounds. But Hauppauge was the first recovery center location. And it's built from a grassroots movement, and it takes the voices of all these people in the recovery community, and it reflects them through programming, through the events that happen, through the workshops that happen. Everything is community driven. It's not a top-down approach, because it wouldn't follow that pure model that everyone is on an equal plane. That in itself is like, okay, this is following all the same recovery principles. I want to be around this even more. So yeah, I started volunteering while I was still living in long-term treatment at a treatment center. And I started bringing more people around and wanting them to get involved and have this experience that I was having. And it was like about 2 years later, after that initial starting to volunteer and learn more about all the different communities that exist within the recovery world, that I made that leap into working in this field and to truly appreciate all that's offered here. There are so many different grassroots organizations that are doing yeoman's work in serving the most vulnerable. And once I learned more about what Family and Children's Association does here on Long Island and have been doing for over 140 years, I was like, this is a natural fit. And I remember I applied for a position at Thrive and I interviewed. It was kind of daunting. I interviewed with about 6 people in the room. And none of those people would be my future manager,
Yeah.
but that was what it was. And I got to learn a little bit more in that session about what a recovery coach does and how they're not there to be a sponsor. They're not there to be a friend. They're someone's ally on this journey, and they're going to help them find whatever it is to connect with the light that's within, to turn those lights on, and so that they can get to experience what I experienced. And
Yeah.
what a beautiful thing that is.
It is a beautiful thing. And, one of the things that, really affected me in the beginning when I first found the peer advocacy movement and started working at Thrive is this work is so deeply connected to my recovery, just on a personal level, that it took me some hard lessons at first, taking on too much and a lot of that countertransference, really like picking old scabs every time I talked to somebody about something that they were going through. It's so deeply connected to my personal recovery that I had to really find my place in my space and a way to stay rooted and connected to my own personal recovery. So, how do you do that with this being such deeply personal work? How do you stay connected and rooted in your own personal recovery?
It's an awesome question. It's so kind of foundational to the profession. Being true to boundaries and to ethical kind of considerations for what we do. To me, that looks like when I'm at work, I'm there to serve others. And outside of that time frame is when I get to soak up and absorb and to be a receiver. That kind of is fundamental. Like I'm when I'm in my role and I'm wearing my hat, sure there's going to be things that crop up that are going to continue to try to pull me back out and
Hmm.
say, "Oh, but this is what you're going through," or that's what your dad said to you when you were younger that kind of
Oh, yeah.
set you off. So making sure that I have someone I could text or call to kind of run things by that was outside of my place of work, just to kind of almost level set me to, hey, just keep your mind. Remember, you're at work right now, and as much as it's so tied into your journey, because those emotions might be exactly the same that someone else is experiencing, remember why you're there. Just kind of that shift in perspective. And that's what we receive in recovery. It's that
Yeah.
shift in perspective and almost like a little reset. And it might have only been needed for like 10 minutes. It might have been needed for that entire day's shift.
Yeah.
Maybe it looks like allowing myself a little bit of extra self-care. And that could be taking a day to heal and to do some self-reflection and to connect with the supports that are outside of my place of work in a deeper way. It could be maybe I need to kind of double down on what I'm doing and take a deeper dive and allow for that healing experience to occur so that all these emotions aren't flooding me all the time and that I have some kind of built-in resiliency for when those moments occur. But it will continue to occur. It's not like something that's just a button that I can stop.
Right.
Being aware and then having something on the back side of that to go, okay, this reinforces my boundary that when I'm here, I address it this way, and I could reach out to someone in the moment or always run things past. I've had good supervision, which has really been dynamic, running it through leadership and just allowing for that shift in perspective to come back. That it's not about Ryan in this moment. As much as I want it to be and my addiction and my disease would like it to be, I'm here to serve. And I'm also human. And maybe that means I needed to be a little bit easier on myself in those times. And that is quite okay. And that's something that I've come to learn just by being around the profession and working on this side of the addiction and recovery world. Be kind to myself, be gentle with myself, and just recognize that you are just another person in recovery. Doesn't matter how many years removed I might have or anyone might have, still room to grow, still have to continue to be vigilant because my disease is always there. Still continue to be a seeker because that's true to me. I'm always going to look to incorporate recovery into my hobbies. That's just
Mhm.
kind of who I am now. So whether it be looking to do some form of reading outside of work, most likely I'm going to try to find some kind of group that has reading included within their recovery platform. So,
Yep.
or going on vacation, I'm going to try to find a 12-step meeting.
Yeah.
It just kind of becomes ingrained in my way of life outside of, but I can't slack on that, because if I slack on it outside of, then it's going to slowly start to trickle into my ability to be of maximum support within my role.
Yeah.
So it's self-care and boundaries. And I think I started off by saying boundaries and ethics, but like taking a deeper look at that and allowing myself to kind of word vomit it all out, if
Yep.
you will. Yeah, self-care, boundaries kind of go hand in hand.
So before we wrap up, I do have one more question for you. If there's one thing, there's a lot of people out there that might not understand recovery or that are curious about recovery. There's a lot of stigma out there. As a person in long-term recovery, if there's one thing you can tell people that might not understand recovery about recovery, what would you want them to know?
It is beyond. So there's a saying in one of the 12-step fellowships that says it's beyond your wildest dreams. And as corny as that sounds, I cannot describe to you enough the freedom that comes from recovery from addiction, the chains that pull us down, that weigh our minds down, that want to literally kill us, can be broken. It doesn't matter what life experiences have encountered you, what you think you might have done to sever that connection from freedom. It is there, it is real. I have seen some of the people that I thought were on their deathbed have sustained recovery in that experience, and it is afforded and it is available to anyone, and it's free. It's
Yeah.
free, and it is a fun way of living. Yeah, I can't express that enough either. I was so fearful that I was going to be putting down a substance, putting down a drink or a drug, and becoming this version of myself that I wasn't gonna like. I already didn't like myself, and all my hobbies had become so ingrained with whatever I was consuming that I stopped liking them too. I didn't become a boring version of myself. I became the best version of myself. So if I could convey that to you, that there is an opportunity for you to truly love yourself. And Ryan of 10 years ago couldn't fathom loving himself and appreciating who you are deep down and finding connection, friends that are going to be with you for the rest of your life if you want that, passions and hobbies that are going to guide you through every day of your life, resources to keep you connected no matter what you're going through in your life. It's there, it is real, and you are worthy of that. And all it takes is asking for help, and you can do it right now. You can do it right now, this very moment. And I'm starting to tear up.
I see it, and
Man,
that's what I love about you. You're so emotional about this stuff, and you can tell how important it is to have. You know, when people have gone through a lot, when they get this emotional, and it's tears of joy, though, isn't it? Like this isn't a sad emotion. This is tears of joy.
when I say freedom,
Uh huh.
it's just that. It is freedom from bondage. It's freedom from the true shackles that wanted me dead.
Yeah.
The disease would like to kill me. It wants me separated, and it wants me eventually dead. And here, going back to that first word, opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I actually have the opportunity of a sound mind and a sound conscience, and actually liking who I am, to
Yeah.
be able to go forward through life and to allow each opportunity to play out and to respond rather than react. And it's an easier way of life. It really is. And it is enjoyable as all hell.
Yeah.
And if that's one thing I could to share, just to kind of take away, and it's a beautiful life, man. It is a beautiful, beautiful life, and it is so worth living.
Someone hand this guy a tissue. I want to hand you a tissue virtually. I can't do it. Well, listen, Ryan, listen, our CEO of Family and Children's Association, Jeff Reynolds. I heard him say one time, and it was so poignant to me, that the conversations that we have, with the people that we serve are such privileged conversations. And that's what I get when I talk to you. And that's how I feel why this podcast is going to be so great and so meaningful, because I feel like having these conversations, I feel privileged to have had this conversation with you. I feel privileged to know you and to be led by you. I mean, I've just learned so much and I'm old as dirt, right? And I've learned more in the last 3 years, being at Thrive and being around people like you than I have my entire life. So you got anything else you want to say, Ryan?
Nothing to add outside of just that. What a true joy that we get to experience through Thrive every day.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and I wish that for everyone. So if you don't have a Thrive near you, speak up. It can be. Recovery center in your community is something that you deserve. And we'd love to connect with you and have those conversations so that it can happen in your neck of the woods as well. So the experiences and what we've learned and some of the best practices that we've ingrained here at FCA, we'd love to share with you as well. So whether you're seeking recovery or you're seeking recovery capital in your community, that's what we can help with. We got you.
All right. Thank you, Ryan Kiser, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching, listening to Through Their Eyes. And until next time, we'll see you. All right, bye. Thanks for listening to Through Their Eyes. To learn more about Family and Children's Association, visit fcali.org.